Welcome to episode 200 of Girl Take the Lead, where each week we explore womanhood and leadership. And I'm your host, Yo Kenny. Well, it's a milestone to hit 200 episodes. Wait, let me toot my own horn. And my daughter Kiki said I should do something special. So here it goes. At the end of my episodes this year, I've asked our guests, what would they tell their 20-something self today? And I have loved so many of their answers. I put some of them together for you. You'll hear their amazing voices, and I'll have links to their episodes in the show notes. So shout out to these guests, Gen Zers, Hannah MacDonald and my daughter Kiki, Millennials from Mother's Day Movement, Dom and Julianne, and Julie B, Chrissy, and my daughter Emma, Gen Xers, Melissa, Claire, Anne, Suparna, Janine, and my sis, Andrea. Boomers, Paula, Lita, and me. When I was answering the question, my view of speaking to myself at 20 reveals some of the optimism and naiveté I had at the time. As a warning, my comments today speak to Roe v. Wade, which greatly impacted my 20s. And I wanted to speak about that. So if abortion rights are a trigger for you, you may want to skip this episode. Thank you for being here. I wish I could thank each and every one of you, because without you, there wouldn't be 200 episodes or more than 20,000 downloads. If you went to my heartfelt card and gift store, I'd send each and every one of you the cheers card that says, "You made it look so easy." Let's keep doing this, okay? Our voices are needed now more than ever. Let's keep exploring leadership together and examine how we can support and inspire each other so other women with brave, courageous wings keep flying to pursue the highest offices. Enjoy the lesson, and here you go. What would you tell your own 20-something self today?
I think that I would tell my younger self, oh, you know what? I read this quote today and it was really, really good. Your life is being written out in chalk, not in ink. And it can feel like life is in ink all the time. Like the decisions that you're making, you can never step away from. But realistically, you can always pivot one way or another. And so just take it one day at a time, because as intentional as you can be, as crazy as you can be, and I am crazy and intentional about everything in the future. I swear I'll have everything mapped out to the day that I die. But also, if something changes,
Yeah.
something changes. Like that's so outside of my control. And so just do what you can do, but don't freak out. Life's not fake.
Yeah.
Not to judge. Don't judge people, no matter what, no matter how much you disagree. Don't judge somebody. I that's honestly one of the hardest lessons I think I've learned. I had a lot of years of just righteousness. And now it's like everybody's just trying. I mean, I think for most of us, most people are just trying to show up, do their thing.
Yeah.
Leave some kind of impact that's better, or leave a little bit of a legacy and go home. And you never know what kind of day somebody's having or what they're dealing with. So just don't judge. Don't judge people.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, girls, what would you tell your 20-something self?
Trust yourself.
Trust yourself.
Be more confident. It's cliche, but yeah, I hear it all the time. I heard it then. I should have been paying more attention.
I love that one too. It's like listening to your intuition more. Yeah. How about you, Julianne?
I was actually exactly along the same lines. trust the journey that you're on. You know, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be winds and turns. But each moment is leading for you, my 20, you know, something self to be exactly where you should be. And I would tell her to trust herself, trust her intuition, and most importantly, trust her vulnerability, because it's her greatest strength and she really should not shy away from it.
This is a good question. I would definitely say to give myself some grace here. Like I said earlier, we're really hard on ourselves, and you always want more and more and more. And you always feel like failure is so imminent, and you don't always take a step while you're going through a process to really take in how far you've come. And I think that the stress and the insomnia that I experienced in my 20s, I would just take a breather and just tell myself that, you know, you're doing fine. Everything will be okay. Although you basically tell yourself that, not knowing that it will be. But in retrospect, I think I would have told myself to calm down. Everything will work itself out. You'll make babies. You'll find the right person. You're going to find success. And whatever hard work you're putting in will come back.
Beautifully said. So, my darling, we could go on for like ever talking. We just, just feed off of each other in our energies. So, what would you tell your 20-something self today?
I would tell my 20-something self, you were born to do great things. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that is telling you what you don't want and clarifying what you do want. So don't be afraid to be yourself and be curious and make mistakes. Everything you have been through has not been wasted. Everything you've been through, the pain can be turned into superpower. So nothing's wasted. Nothing you've gone through, whether it's good or bad, is wasted. So I think that's the main things I would say.
I just love the answers I hear to that question. Okay, so before you go, I have to ask you both, what would you tell your 20-something self today?
Wow, 20-something. Well, that's a range of bad choices. Okay. You know what I think it would be? I probably wouldn't have listened to myself because I'm stubborn and who I am, but I would always look at people that were successful or had achieved things, and I was like, look at that, look at them. And I never thought it could be me. I never believed that. And it can. It really can. And yeah, I just wish and I think it's just that love of self, right? That belief that you could do things. But I just remember being like, look at them achieving. You can't do that, and thinking that way. And I really wish I could have reversed that at a younger age and really. But you know what? I think it happens as it should, I think. And the timing happens the way it should when you're able. But yeah, that's mine. Just believe in yourself. You can do anything you put your mind to.
Yeah.
What's yours, Andrea?
I have a couple. The first one that came to mind when I just laughed as soon as I saw that question, and I was like, oh, don't date them. Just don't. Just don't. And then I thought, okay, I got to give Yo a real
Can I change my answer?
Don't date any of them. Oh,
We've all been there.
Yes, that's one. That was a first instinct. But my second one is more of just like a physical one, is just like, don't stop working out. Just don't stop. But the philosophical one is I would have to really sit 20-year-old me down and just say, listen, kiddo, if you don't like, just do your best to find out how to love yourself sooner than later, because if you keep going on the way you are, you're going to spend more than half of your life not loving yourself, and that's not the way life's supposed to be. It's just get on it.
In the exploration and rumination and considering all of the options and trying to make an optimal choice about what it is that we actually want to do. And I don't want to short circuit that process or minimize the importance of that learning and introspection. But I think people can get stuck in not taking a small action, just a small low risk action, and getting a reaction out of ourselves. I went and had this coffee, or I went and signed up for this class, and after it I felt relieved, more stressed, it's too much. What's the reaction that we get from these actions that we take? But we don't necessarily learn about the new person we're trying to grow into just by thinking. We learn by doing and by taking an action. So I like to hold space for the thought, but not to camp out there for too long. We need to think about it. We need to make some choices. Then we need to do it. Then we can come back and think again, but we have to do something.
Yeah, I think that's so key because, I was a marketing professional for a long time. And when I would introduce a new product, we'd do a test market. Right? It would be a small exercise to see what we got from it before we went national or whatever and spent a great deal more money. And I find these along the way, there's always going to be some new things to learn and some new challenges to overcome.
Right.
And the small steps, like we think success is getting to the journey, getting to the destination, right?
Right.
And maybe a way for us to look at it is that success can just be the start of the journey and what we learn in the journey and how we show resilience, right? Through it.
Absolutely. And the adventures that we can go on just by, boarding the train, right? Just by starting the journey. And I think sometimes we can be too focused on that end goal and put our blinders on and not be open to all of the other possibilities that can happen when we are willing to say, my intention is to get to point X, and I'm open to what happens along the way.
So that's an interesting question. I think I would just tell my 20-something self to just follow your inner voice, because I always did follow my inner voice. But I did have people telling me that, sometimes following my inner voice made other people very uncomfortable. Like I was talking about advocacy. And when people would ask me, why have you stopped eating meat? And I would tell them in pretty graphic terms. And it made a lot of people uncomfortable. I gradually found better ways of saying it so that I got the results I wanted in I guess, less disruptive way as well. But I would tell my 20-something self to not be afraid and to just be disruptive, because that's how you bring about change. But learn to do it in a way that wins friends and influences people instead of just ruffling their feathers so much that they can't see a way to be your ally.
I think that I would tell her that that to let go of perfectionism, there's no such thing, and to be in the moment from the beginning. Like, we always say life passes us by, right? But to really just take in what you're doing, just be really conscious of that, and laugh often. I'm always, we need to have fun. We have to prioritize having fun and celebrating our wins.
Well, what would you tell your 20-something self today?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny. Someone recently said to me, gee, it's too bad you weren't in this flow earlier in your career. In other words, I loved my career and it was awesome and it moved and it's been great. I wish I had been more confident earlier, and not in an arrogant way. But if I could go back and talk to myself, like I'll give an example, going to Harvard Business School, not an easy place. And I went in the mid-90s, and at that time, only I think 20% of the student body was female. It's definitely gone up, but it was, it's a tough environment. You're graded based on how you debate in class primarily. And for me, I tended to be on the quieter side, believe it or not. I've come out of my shell since then, but I think that's what helped it. I used to get so stressed out, and a lot of us did in those classes. Every day you had to be on. You didn't know if you're going to get the cold call. But that I wish I could go back and say, enjoy, like you're there, like just enjoy it. And by relaxing a little bit, you'll actually do better. And so I would say that it's not an arrogance thing. It's about being comfortable in your own skin and knowing what's uniquely you and saying, yeah, and so I think that would have maybe accelerated this flow, this ability to be in full, like joyful pursuit of one's career. It's not just a job. It's this interwoven life, which I think you could probably identify with, yourself. It's like, we're not just doing this to earn a paycheck. It's like, no, it's our full expression in our life. So I would love to have told myself that then.
Just relax.
Yeah.
I guess for me too, like it'll all unfold exactly as it should and when it should, that there isn't a time. I used to think, oh, I've got to do this by this time. Just pushing myself really hard, where if we just sort of lean back into it and have that confidence that you talked about, that it's all going to work out just fine and it's going to be exactly as it should. But I sure
Thank
didn't
you for
think that.
saying that. I think it's something it's funny because it's a great question to reflect on for us. And also if someone's listening to this and they are, in the 20s, 30s, is, to be in that trust. I always believe if you're putting the right intentions out, and I would say, to follow. Now to follow that intuition, that calling, but to maybe relax into it. So it's a really good question.
I would say you can wait because there's a lot more rich life much later in your decades than you're aware of. I read a study not long ago that said our happiest decade is our 60s, our second happiest is our 70s, our third is our 50s, and the worst is our 40s. And I think I thought back then I had to accomplish everything right then. And now that I'm living a second life, a completely different life, and I'm 11 years into that, I realize, there's plenty of time and it's all right to grow and mature and develop in your own way. I also would have said, spend the time with your kids that you're going to spend with them. Do not put them second, put them first, because that pays off like nothing else. And I would say that to every father everywhere. Mothers do it anyway. But I think most fathers think that they're providing, that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And I was never one of those fathers, and I'm very glad that I was not.
It's a beautiful way for us to end our episode today. Thank you, Paula, for joining us. Really, really love listening to you and talking with you. So thank you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure being with you.
I wish someone had conversations with me at that age. Like I have conversations with the reader. I was pre-law. I was supposed to go to law school. That was the path I was on. Everything was designed for that. I didn't want to be a lawyer, but I didn't know enough to say time out. Like, let me take a beat and figure out what I want to be. I didn't have really good role models. So I would love for that 20-year-old version of myself to just know that you're not going to make mistakes because everything's going to get you where you're supposed to end up a little later in life, but you'll get there. And the world's going to be a better place because you're in it. And well, let's give that message to young people, because wouldn't that be a confidence boost no matter where you are?
So, girls, welcome.
Hey.
So, we're celebrating our 200th episode. Can you believe it?
That's crazy. That's awesome.
200. I can't believe it. It seemed like when I was first starting in, I would see the 200 plus episodes that other podcasters would have. I'd go, whoa, they've been doing this for a long, long time, that kind of thing. And I don't think I ever had too much of an ambition to say, wow, I hope I get to do that. But here we are, 200 in. Woohoo. Should we do a woohoo? Woohoo.
Woo!
You guys have listened to me and advised me, and I'm just so grateful to have you there and to kind of take this journey with me. And so Kiki, why don't you start? What would you tell your 20-something self? Now, we should probably tell our listeners that, you're 27. So
right. I was going to be like, at what phase? Because I feel like, there's, even though I'm not finished with my 20s yet, there's still many different eras within my 20s.
Yeah.
So I don't know which age, but I do have, I think, a general theme overall that if I could go back in time and tell myself something, it would be, be patient with yourself and don't be hard on yourself, because you're taking time to figure out, simple things like your style or, who you kind of want to surround yourself with, but even more so, you're learning about how to present yourself with authenticity, being honest, and being fearless in a way, And it takes time to learn those skills. So I would give my earlier 20s self so much love, because she was just figuring that stuff out. It was not glamorous, and I'm still figuring it out. And I probably will because I think growth, you take a step forward and then sometimes you take a step back. And when you do take a step back, which I think I did a handful of times and continue to this day, to remain patient with yourself and don't be so hard on yourself. And I would, tell her, thank you. Thank you.
Lovely.
Yeah.
How about you, Emma?
I don't have anything nearly as deep. Well, okay, so
and Emma we should say, Emma, you're 30.
I'm 30. I turned 30 in May. And I think when I turned 30, I made like a little reel on my personal Instagram of like 30 things I learned at 30. And I think like one of them, which is I think rings true to this day, is like wearing SPF is like the best thing you can do for yourself, and also staying hydrated. But I think like on a more serious note, I think it's more like, I think there's thinking about it now, like now that I'm engaged to be married.
Congratulations. Listeners, we're just so thrilled, and we love James, and it's just going to be a terrific opportunity for us to have two wonderful families together.
Yeah. And I remember I went to school in the Midwest, and people get married really young in the Midwest. And so everybody was getting married in like the mid-20s and like early late 20s. And I remember being like, oh my God, like, has the wagon left the station? Like, has this been like, is this it? Like, am I falling behind? And I think truly, like, now that I'm 30, I'm kind of like, you really cannot, like, for lack of a better phrase, you cannot like your life path. I think it just happens, whatever you do. And it's not necessarily wrong or right. It's just like the one that comes to you. And like, it's kind of like what you make of it. And like, I don't regret like not like rushing to get married in my mid-20s and like waiting and figuring out like what I wanted and doing the self-work to kind of get to this point. But yeah, so that would be my advice, because I think like my younger 20s self took things very seriously, and like I mean I still take things very seriously, but I think she just was so focused on like doing the milestones, when it's like the party is the more important thing. Like, go out and have fun. Don't worry about the milestones. They'll just happen, whether you like it or not. And yeah, so that's where I would say that would be what I tell her.
Very cool.
And then what about you, Mom?
So I hope we don't get too emotional.
It's okay if you do.
But I
safe
probably
space.
will. The biggest impact in my 20s was when I was 19 and Roe v. Wade was passed by the Supreme Court. And it changed my life, because I did have pregnancies and I had an option. So I guess I would tell my 20-something self, that girl that wanted so much in life beyond what her sister had and what other people had around her, to just treasure the women that had done the work to get those kinds of opportunities for me to have in my 20s. And I don't think that I appreciated that work and what that opportunity meant until we lost it. And I was definitely in my 20s very self-centered, concerned about my own advancement. Left a wreckage of guys along the way because I was going for it. I was, I moved to New York in the middle of all of that from LA, and just carved out a whole different path, and really broke some cycles. And I didn't consider myself very brave, but looking back at some of the decisions that I made and where I went, I would, like you, Kiki, give that little girl a big hug and say, you are brave and courageous and strong, and don't stop. Keep going. Keep your mind open. And like you, Emma, travel, see as much as you can. And probably I would say to her, marriage is not a death sentence. It is not. It is not something, because, I didn't get married until I was in my 30s. And, we didn't have the two of you come until I was in my 40s. So I would just tell her, keep your path, but keep it bigger than just about you. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Kind of is where I am.
That's beautiful.
I think that's great.
Yeah. So we don't know until we get something, right? Until it's gone, perhaps, or.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think when I was a little younger too, I don't know, I just kind of thought politics, in my opinion, are never really like calm, but I just always assumed like, oh, the candidates are always going to be really respectful, and, there's going to be class in politics, and, having like Obama for 8 years, I just kind of thought like, oh, this feeling of security and everything, that's just what happens, that's what I assume happens every time. And then of course 2016, all of that changed. And it's definitely been, yeah, it's been a lot like, oh, well, yeah, that was really nice. I thought it was always going to be like that. I thought we were always going to have, that, I thought for my whole life I was going to have Roe v. Wade and, all of that. And now that it's gone, and more, things of that nature to come, I'm just like, well, I'm really glad that you had that, in your 20s. And
yeah,
that is really great to be grateful for all the work that women did to, support us and the allies too that helped make that happen.
Yeah. I guess one other thing I would say to my younger self too is that the pendulum does swing.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it was taken away, it can come back. And just it definitely is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening today, and we sure hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tell a friend about us, join our public Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead, or visit our website, girltaketheleadpod.com. We also have a YouTube channel where your subscription would be appreciated. Once you're on YouTube, search at Girl Take the Lead. And we recently expanded to YouTube Music where you can see a video of this episode. Our next episode will feature our guest, Drew Turner, Millennial, and my Chi Omega sorority sister, who I recently met at the Nancy Walton Laurie Leadership Institute of Chi Omega flagship session in Memphis, Tennessee. Drew stood out in my group as a leader, and I knew she'd be great for the show and offer us tons of great insights to share with us. Drew began her leadership journey in retail at Williams-Sonoma, eventually transitioning into learning and development at Tesla. She's passionate about helping women break free from societal expectations and step confidently into leadership roles. And you'll hear her commitment to others in our discussion. Oh, we had such a good talk. So please join us again for episode 201. Talk to you soon. Bye.